Every time I go on my travels, it's part of my preparation to make a sketchbook to take with me. And every time I make one of these sketchbooks, I learn something new. So this is the last travels I went on when we went to Thailand. And what I learned from this one was I put a pocket in the back for all my bits and bobs. But what I learned was it needed a closure. So I put that little Velcro on when we got back. I really liked this size. It worked well for me because I could do single pages or double pages. I don't think I've done a triple page. I may have. Anyway, that worked well for me, and the paper worked well for me. So for my Japan trip, which is the next one we have coming up, I'm going to keep the same size. I'm going to remember about that pocket. Loved having a pocket, but needs a closure. I filled this in about 3 weeks. We were there for just under 3 weeks, and I did both sides quite easily. I have a feeling that there will be so much in Japan that I might need extra space. In Japan, it's very traditional to get stamps wherever you go, train stations, I mean definitely temples and shrines. And funny, actually in Thailand I put stamps in here from one of the museums we went to, and I really like that. So I think I want to put all the general stamps into my sketchbook as we go along. So definitely I need extra thickness, but I don't want it to be that thick. I think I'll make it about 1/3 longer. So one of these sketchbooks is really, really easy to make, and it's so personal, which is what I love, and it helps me think about travels. What you need is something hard for the cover. It's called grey board, but you could reuse the back of an old sketchbook, the back of a hardback book. If you haven't got something like that, stick 2 bits of thinner cardboard together, and you'll need 2 pieces of that, which will be the final size. You need something to cover it in, and I've been practicing this. This is called Suminagashi, and it is a Japanese marbling procedure, technique, that's the word. I have a full tutorial if you'd like to see it, and again it's Japanese. I'm preparing for that, so that is what I'm going to use to cover my boards. I love the black and red, so I've got a tie that coordinates. If you don't like a tie, you could just put an elastic band around it. I need glue. This happens to be clear PVA glue. You could use white glue, Mod Podge, Elmer's, something that's going to stick things together and be strong. And then you need the paper that goes inside. I'm using watercolour paper because that's what I'm going to be using. You need a sharp knife, ruler, a pencil. If you have a bone folder, that's brilliant. If you haven't, don't worry. A pair of scissors, maybe a cutting mat or something just to protect your work surface. When I'm sticking my covers, I like this. It's the inside of a cereal packet. It acts as a non-stick paper to make sure when it's drying, nothing sticks. I've got the index out of an old atlas, and I will show you how to make a pocket. If you don't want a pocket, you're fine. It just needs to be quite a light but strong paper. The first thing I'm going to do is make my covers because they can be drying while I make the contents. This is my grey board, and I have actually coated it white with some gesso, and simply because this is very transparent, I want the white to show through rather than the grey to dull it. Make it to the size you want. If you've got a piece of cardboard, it makes sense to cut it in half. It needs to be slightly wider than the page that you are going to make. The reason is that then it protects the edges of your page. Here, I want to definitely get this edge and this edge, because those are the bits I particularly like. And we need to have a couple of centimetres, an inch overlap. So do think about how your pattern will work if you're using pattern paper, whether you want it to match, just what the aesthetics are. This paper is really fragile when it's wet, so I am going to apply the glue to my board rather than to the paper. Really pay attention to corners. Those are the bits that always end up peeling off. Just make sure it doesn't get too wrinkled. I am being careful because I say this stuff does get very fragile. It's holding up okay so far. Flip it over, and then we need to mitre the corners. So all I mean is cut off the corners, but do not cut right up to the edge of the board because we want to encase the corner fully. Now I'm going to put glue along the edges, and I'm going to do one at a time. So I'm just going to fold that over, do the other long edge. So usually I would put it actually on the paper, but because of that delicacy, I won't. And a good way to do this is to actually roll it over, and you'll get a nice edge to it. Now we do the corners, and what I do, take my thumbnail and just nip in here and here, and that makes it really easy to fold over, and we've totally enclosed the corners. So nip in along that edge, nip in along that edge, and then we can just fully enclose it. Then again, roll that over, roll that over. That looks a bit of a mess to me, but I'm really hoping that those will flatten out, and so if they don't, I shall embrace the Japanese art of wabi-sabi, which means finding beauty in imperfection. I need to let it dry, and that's where this paper comes in, because there may be a bit of glue on there. I don't want it to stick to anything. I can encase it like that, put it under a heavy book to dry. If there's any glue on here, do a fresh bit of paper, but then we repeat that with our second piece. I'm going to try this slightly differently to see whether it's a bit easier by sort of starting at one end and sticking it down this time. The other one was a bit wrinkly. You learn as you go along. Mitre those corners. Start with our long edge, roll it round. Get a nice edge on that and press it in place. Other long edge. Then remember here, just nip it in with your thumbnail. Nip it in with your thumbnail. Bit of glue. Bit of glue. Roll it round. Press it in place. Roll it round. Press it in place. There is our second cover, and that needs to dry along with its chum. While our covers are drying, let's do the contents. And I have got a complete sheet, which obviously doesn't fit on the camera, of watercolour paper. My sheet of watercolour paper is 61 centimetres, so I'm dividing that in thirds to cut it into 3 strips, and that will give me just over 20 centimetres for the page size. I hate wasting paper. Depending on what size piece of paper you have, work out the most economical way of doing it. Say, I don't want to have little strips of paper left over at the end, so this size works for me. And now I am going to cut this into strips. Depending on the thickness of your paper, this is £140, which is 300 grams per square metre. You might not go through in one. If you don't force it, just try and do 2 or 3 cuts to get through. So in my case, I've got 3 bits of paper, and now we need to fold it. Each page is going to be 14 centimetres wide, so I am going to mark those. Again, the more accurate you can be with your measurements, the better the end result. If you've got a bone folder, and a bone folder, it's plastic, it's not bone, Used to be made of bone, not anymore, so vegans and vegetarians are fine. They only cost a couple of pounds. They're really useful for bookmaking. You use them for getting sharp folds. But if you've got one, you can use the point to score, and it makes folding thick paper so much easier. So you fold it and then you go along that fold and you get a nice sharp crease. If you haven't got one, let's find our pair of scissors. What you can do is use the back of the blade, because you don't want to cut it, you're just scoring it. And then again, it just helps fold thick paper. And if you haven't got that bone folder, you can use the handle and just bend that fold in place. What you can do is from here actually score along the edge, and that saves having to measure anymore. The danger is that your pages may get slightly thicker with each fold, or slightly bigger with each fold. And you may be wondering why I've got a little bit left on the edge. That is deliberate, and this is so I can stick all the strips together. So try and have a little bit left over. If you haven't, because of your measurements, you'd have to cut a little strip of paper to stick things together. You don't want to have that much left over, so I want to maximise the size and just have at least 1 to 2 centimetres, just under an inch. And that is our concertina. Cut as many strips as you want. So I am going for 4 strips. The book I showed you at the beginning was 3 strips. You can make these as long or as short as you want. And that's the joy of making your own book. You know, some of the books that commercial ones we buy are just too short for a long trip, or too long for a short trip. If it's only a weekend, I quite like to finish a complete book in one go. What we now need to do is stick it together. Don't worry about the way things are folded at this moment, because we can sort that out. But basically that little overlap will stick under there. We'll line that up, and that will join it into one big long strip. Let it settle in a bit, and then line that up. And that has joined those 2 strips. And put it under another heavy book. The important thing is that all the tabs are on the same side of this long concertina. So we can put our glue on that tab, press it into place, make sure you've removed any excess, and then put it to dry. On the final piece, you will have 1 tab left over, and we don't need it, so we can just cut that off. While our insert, our stack of paper, is drying and our covers are drying, we can sort out our pocket. And this is what the pocket will look like. You need a rectangle the size of your page, not the size of the covers, the size of the insert. At the bottom, you have got an extra flap, and that will fold up like that. So it's like a big fat capital T, and then along the sides you need 3 smaller rectangles that will make the depth of the pocket. You fold those rectangles, one in, one out, and turn it round. That makes a little zigzag. You tuck that bottom up, and can you see that gives you a little concertina pocket? This will be stuck to your cover, and that just lets the pocket open. So 2 of those rectangles is the maximum depth. I wouldn't make them too big, because you're not going to keep masses of stuff in there. Just look again. It's like a big fat capital T. This is the bit underneath. This is going to be stuck to your cover as well. 3 thin equal rectangles each side, and then you fold them in, out, in. What I like to do is just stick it at the bottom to hold it in place. So dab of glue, and that just keeps the bottom in place. Dab of glue, and then we need to glue this not all the way across, just at the edges. This, like that. Fold it up so that can go under a heavy weight to dry too. You now need to make yourself a cup of tea while everything's drying. It's construction time, which is this very gratifying part. Things are still a little bit damp, but I'm impatient. Well, actually, thanks to my husband for this idea. In Japanese literature, because it's written vertically, books are bound on the right side, whereas in Western writing, they're bound on the left side. And so they are read what we would call backwards, but of course it's not. And my husband said, oh, you're going to do a backwards sketchbook. And I was like, oh, I could actually. So in this sketchbook, the Thai one, this was the first page, but I'm going to make the Japanese one. So this is the first page, and the pocket was here, but the pocket on the Japanese one is going to be at the back. So I need to make sure I get this right. This is the one that I want to be the front cover. That will be my front cover. This is going to stick here, and this will be page 1. And this is all my concertina. Do make sure that the joins are at the back. So this is the front side, front cover. So that's my stack of papers. Then my pocket is going to go here. My tie will go between the pocket and the back cover, and that will be stuck there. And I just want to make sure I've got my head round it because I am doing it backwards. Japanese is a fascinating language because they do write vertically in things like literature, but in newspapers and business documents, they can write horizontally. The first thing we need to do is to stick our pocket in place. If you're not putting a pocket in, ignore this, and you can stick this straight to your back cover. But I really do love a pocket. We need to put glue just on these little folds here. And here. It would be far easier if I wasn't waving this around and actually did it on the surface, wouldn't it? So then, when it's glued, we line it up carefully with the back page. The paper you use for this isn't going to show in the final sketchbook, but you know it's there. I know it's there. And can you see? We've now got a nice little expandable pocket. Right, more clean paper. We now have to glue our front cover. I like that because it looks like a wave and it reminds me of the very famous Japanese woodcut, the wave. We don't glue here because this is bigger than that. We glue the first page. So I'm putting a piece of paper under there so that when I put the glue right to the edge, it won't go on the rest of the book. And yet again, we worry about corners and edges more than anything else. Take out our little protecting bit of paper, get our cover there, and then we need to centre it. When you're happy, press it in place, and that is our front cover. Let's put the rest of the book there. This bit of the pocket is now our back page. So again, I'm just going to put a little sheet there to protect everything else. And we're going to glue onto our pocket. So if you haven't got a pocket, you would just be gluing the back sheet of paper. Now, we mustn't forget to put our ribbon, so I'm finding the halfway mark, and let's just double check. I want the shiny side of the ribbon out, and I will put it there. Put some glue on top, and again, let's remove our gluey sheet. Line everything up carefully. When you're happy, just press it in place. Make sure you haven't caught your ribbon. Before it dries, have a very quick look. Remember, front cover, opening it up. I want to open to that double page. Open, open, open. Get to the back. Final page. Nasty mark I'll try and sort out. There's my pocket. There's my ribbon. Let's protect it again with our super non-stick sheets. Get out my super handy book, and we will let that dry. Come back. I'm going to put that Velcro tab on and just show you the finished book. Here we are a few hours later, and it's pretty much dry. And I found a picture of the wave, and you can see that's why I wanted to choose that bit of the Suminagashi, because it really reminded me of the wave. Anyway, maybe that's just me. 3 things remain to be done. The first is just to make sure this pocket has got its little thing on it. I have got sticky Velcro, pop them there. That will just stop anything falling out. Next thing I need to do is just sort out those, because they were a bit long. And then the third thing is that I actually want to protect this paper. It's only rice paper, and I expect it'll survive, and it will get scuffed up. So I'm going to use wax. Now, this is just actually chalk paint wax. It's clear, it'll dry clear. I know it's white at the moment. It will dry clear, and it'll just slightly waterproof this, because I am concerned that if it gets caught in the rain, or I spill my watercolours on it or something, then potentially that rice paper might get a little fed up with me and fall to pieces. What you do, it's not exactly tricky, is just rub in a small amount of wax. Obviously, if you don't like using your fingers, please use a little cloth to put it on. And then we allow that to dry. Well, it's not drying, it's curing. So don't worry about the wax. It will not be sticky. It dries hard, and it doesn't melt either. If you're going somewhere hot and you think, oh, that's no good, it doesn't melt. And what you can do, you can either just let it cure, and that might take a couple of hours depending how warm it is where you are, or once it is cured, get a soft cloth and give it a little gentle buff, and that will just give it a nice sheen. Don't get it on the inside pages, because it will waterproof them, and we really don't want waterproof watercolour paper, do we? Of course, you do not have to do this at all. If you have used more robust papers, or you haven't got wax or anything, you could actually varnish it if you want, or just leave it naked and actually look after your book a bit more carefully than I do. When I come back from Japan, I will give you a flip through of my sketches and let you know if the book fared well.